We can refuse. Our thought is quite material, and it also has a certain impact on the surrounding world. And only by having extrasensory abilities can one potentially get to the essence, get to the truth. Our reality, the space we are in, it mostly senses our state. Everyone who comes to me wants something in this world, one way or another. And sometimes a person looks for a solution to this problem in spirituality. A person looks for a solution to this problem in energy work and esotericism. This, from my point of view, it's a pretty good solution, because from the energy level, we can achieve our goals at the material level very quickly and effectively. Their goals at the level of the psyche. No, and even their goals at that level, body of second attention. Naturally, it includes health, relationships, and money, and everything else that we can come up with for ourselves. When you work from the energy level, it can all be very quick, very easy and very clear. Actually, I used to be like that myself. In our reality, no matter which side we start from to achieve something, our reality has settings, rules, and orders that have been created. Those created reality, and these rules and orders become obvious over time. This is no longer a matter of faith. But for now, it's not obvious. You'll have to trust and take into account the presence of these rules in our activities. The first rule: any situation we find ourselves in is always within our power. Always. We can't find ourselves in a situation where we are helpless. Absolutely. That doesn't happen. We can refuse death. Offers us death. This is a situation that is within our power, and we can refuse it. And so, to have a core, to be able to stand in the face of all reality and all those circumstances that become immediately obvious to you in the moment. I mean, sure, I messed up, but not today. That's for this. There must be a state that only belongs to the person who has found themselves in that situation. No intermediaries, no helpers, none at all, absolutely. There won't be any of the various drugs and components here. Only the person themselves and their inner state. It's about the inner. Outwardly, you can behave like a red one on the outside. But who is there inside? Inside, maybe in a very calm state on the outside, to play out, let's say, a hysterics, and that person will be considered a good actor. He will get his Oscar, he will be famous and popular. But if a person is having a meltdown inside and outside, or if they pretend everything is fine on the outside while there's chaos inside, they won't get any Oscars. He will face lessons in problems, the cause of which will be himself. And once again, I will repeat the first rule. Our reality, no matter what happens to us. Situation we are in is in our control. We can get out of it in any direction we choose. And we can simply get out of it in absolutely any direction we choose. Yes, we can choose to go in a direction that leads to more degradation. This is mainly chosen by people who have an exaggerated sense of self-pity. There's one more rule that we can't escape from. How we allow ourselves to be treated is how we are allowed to be treated in return. And in most cases, reality doesn't filter this much, depending on how you relate to it and how those around you relate to it. How you relate to this and how those around you relate to it. So a person can take an action and say, I did the right thing. Another person, having taken a similar action, will say, I did the wrong thing. Reality will say, if you took that action, then that action will also be taken towards you. And it doesn't really matter whether it's right or wrong. That is, how we allow ourselves to behave, how we react, how we act, how we think. And our thought, it is quite material, and it also has a certain impact on the surrounding world. And that's how we will be allowed to be treated in return. If we messed something up between the ages of 3 and 5, and then it comes back to us at 20, your brain won't make the connection. Your brain will say, no way. I don't understand why this happened. Your brain will say, no way. I don't understand why this happened. And only by having extrasensory abilities or by engaging in practices of revisiting, remembering, and gathering information about oneself and one's childhood can one potentially dig down to the essence, to the truth. There are psychologists, there is psychology, even psychiatry. You can potentially dig down to the essence, to the truth. There are psychologists, there is psychology, even psychiatry. And there, people are often asked to remember the very first events in some kind of chain of scenarios. It's a very long process. Sometimes a person can go to a psychologist for years, and after some time, they found the root cause. They found it. The first event in a person's life, and it happened, this revelation of insight, and this insight is just a person realizing that it's not some kind of surprise, but it's a long ago initiated scenario, just a scenario that was initiated long ago. It was not obvious. From the field of energy, from the practices that I demonstrate, this can be done much faster. In a week, in a month, but not over years. So, once again, in a week, in a month, but definitely not over several years. So once again, how we allow ourselves to act is how reality allows us to act in relation to ourselves. And all three levels are involved here. The physical level, that is the physical action itself. The mental level, that is what can be derived from intangible spheres, like thoughts, feelings, and emotions that have not yet been controlled by physics. So these impulses are primary, and naturally, the energy is vast and extensive. The foundation, you could say that it's just vibrations, the vibrations that you emit. Example, there have been situations, I've had many such situations, when a person comes to me with a bunch of problems. He says, I'm not doing anything bad to anyone. I ask, what level have you not done bad to anyone? Well, there you go. I'm not doing anything to anyone. I say, okay, you can immediately see from a person, from their energy, what exactly he is generating, what he is used to generating, and it works really well. When you provoke a person just a little bit, just a tiny bit, and what he is used to, what he is attuned to, starts to come out of him. You poke this person, tuned, it starts to come out of him. You just poke this person with your pinky finger. Oh, and this time, you see internal aggression. Yes, a person doesn't show their aggression outwardly, but that aggression is present within them. This aggression is present him, and the fact that he doesn't express it on a material level. It doesn't mean that reality doesn't see him. Reality sees that he is aggressive at that moment. And the person, they start to think aggressively about something else. It could be an event, it could be another person. It doesn't matter what all of this is happening in relation to. And here sits a person, motionless on a physical level, bitter at the level of thinking, and aggressive at the level of energy. Reality sees this. And into his life, another aggressive person comes who behaves a little differently. Let's say he's not aggressive on an energetic level, but he's aggressive on a physical level. He doesn't keep all of this inside. He immediately lets it out. A negative situation arises. The question arises, why did they treat me this way? It's very simple, because you allow yourself to vibrate that way. Our reality. The space we are in, it feels our state in most cases. Therefore, every time when we talk about practices, when we talk about exercises, we start with S, entering a certain state of being. So it's a preparatory process on a physical level, on a psychological level, and only after that do we take a step into the energy. In the realms of informational fields, this can be found in sayings that do not mention the name of God in vain. You've probably heard such an expression. Accordingly, in order to reach a sufficiently effective level, the energy level, at all previous levels, we must at least have balance. Otherwise, if we go there in quite active processes, these active processes will intensify and reality will see, aha, well, then it's normal for you, then it's acceptable for you. So I allow this to happen to you. There's another rule. It's not as obvious, but it's very important. That's to the end. If you start something like to achieve it, if you're focused on something, if you start putting your efforts, your resources into it, your time, you might not want it as much anymore, find better options, and give up. your time, you lose interest, you give up. All your investments and efforts are wasted. Yes, there are already better options you end up rejecting. The result, everything you spent on it hasn't returned at all. It's like getting a paycheck. Then, everything you invested, everything you spent on it, did not come back to you in any way. It's like getting a paycheck. Put half of it in a sock, and then just wash the sock and wear it again empty, just for yourself on the forehead. So you've thrown away a part of yourself. Not obvious physically, psychologically, energetically, we lose parts fast. On the energy level, when we throw away a part of ourselves, it happens very quickly. Everything comes to an end, and you have to do review practices to get that energy back to yourself. In order to be able to be active again, to be mobile and not fall asleep after half a step, done in any direction. So, when we set our sights on a goal, we understand that we will achieve that goal no matter what. There is even a special word that describes the enemy that prevents this from happening. We have 4 enemies, so it's possible. Attract. This relates to my narrative. The first enemy is fear, when we basically refuse to take action at all, because it's scary. And the second enemy is what prevents us from reaping the results of those actions. It's clarity. Clarity, when everything becomes clear and obvious to you and all that. Well, like, I get it. Why am I even going there to finish it? Well, that's it. Once you wave your hand, twice you wave your hand, but by the third time, there's nothing left to wave at because nothing is getting started. So it's essential every time you are striving for something, you need to understand what you need to take away from this. And here we are, literally at the beginning of our conversation, all sorts of things about everything. And one of the attendees says, I want this. I've been striving for it for a long time, but I just can't make it happen. What do I say him? And if you compare yourself to those people who succeed, what's the difference?
I had a project. I deal with digital stuff, computers, and you need much concentration. Everything just works, and you don't make mistakes. And you really need a lot of concentration. When I focus, everything works. I lost focus, made mistakes, lost money. And then some kind of repair. I had to get it done, and I left. Lost my concentration, making mistakes. Losing money, for example, and, well, some trading. Market story. I let go of the struggle. That's it. And then I have a project now. The project is also serious. And when we were practicing with Ganesh, I could really feel that flow situation, and everything was going well. And it somehow seems like it's going... Well, after we did those elements, it felt like everyone turned against me. It was something like that. Well, everyone was angry, and there was a certain consultation with a partner. It's just that something, well, it's like something like the Matrix just broke, like that. I didn't go to Thailand to do all this with my partner. Family is important. You need to take your wife, for example, with the child now to go, this is income, budget going. The budget is also going towards expenses. There is still no income. This is a start. And all of this just piled up and was thought out. And there's no breakthrough.
Explain? I'm ready to explain. I've already seen everything. So first of all, your configuration, your energy, even your physical traits match those of a successful person. So basically, you're already successful. That's right. So there's nothing that needs to be changed here. Where we need to change, look, when you tell this story, you're looking at it superficially. And are the qualities of another person listed who has everything figured out? Yeah, but what about his family? Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. How do you get through contradictory situations? Wealthy people have one very important trait. It's the endless ease of all situations, which, well, I judge by myself, in which I would just be swallowed by the couch and I was afraid to even move. And they say things like that, and this happens every month. Well, the tax office came down on the whole office, but whatever, we'll figure it out, we'll resolve it. So this inner ease, mobility, and absolute calmness. So the problem isn't in the family or in any partners, but in that inner ease, but that's exactly what's missing.
It starts to become stale. Otherwise, this mix starts happening. Like, what if it doesn't work out? Fears, all of that comes up. No, well, I'm starting to realize this and move forward. Everything is already kind of, well, to realize this and move forward, everything there is already kind of well, ease necessary.
Is, look, this ease comes, again, from an inner state. We find this ease. In practice, we get it to the maximum. Favorable situations. No one is stopping this. I sense being able to do this in an unfavorable situation. So, when we train on a punching bag, obviously the bag won't fight back. But if you step into the ring and just start swinging wildly, well, you'll just get beaten up. If you step into the ring and in front of you is a punching bag, but it's just moving around, you start to concentrate more effectively. Then you can do everything. That's why when we practice, we get used to these states. When the energy flows, when energies are released in the area of the belly, when everything is moving, and it's obviously moving, so you have no doubts that, well, that's how it is. And so whenever a sharp situation arises, and they will always arise, your mobility becomes even more dynamic. You've re-educated and retrained yourself, and you said, I have two options for how to react. The first one is that I get all worked up and stressed out. Second one is I don't get worked up and stressed out. And so, if you've re-educated yourself to don't stress out, don't get weighed down, you'll see that somehow, magically, any sharp situation will elevate you. Increases. It elevates you. In status, in volume, in speed. And you even start looking for it yourself, thinking, okay, where can I find some little problem to practice on? I went through these processes, I know them.
Investor tension, money tight trap. I was tensing up, well, as an investor, right? And I started to, tighten the flow of money and all that. And you start to overthink, you start to feel pressured and go straight ahead. And that, look, again, with ease, yes.
Yes, but only with ease, not throwing money away. And maintain your state. You need to make a decision. Before making a decision, check in with your state. And don't deceive yourself. If you don't feel the channels flowing through your head, here they flow through the head. If you don't feel your heart warm and glowing,
burns,
don't make decisions today. Don't accept it.
I feel there's a block here within me, but how do you do it? You need to work on it.
You need to train. If you're approaching your problems from an energy perspective, you need to train.
Head is swelling from the task.
Absolutely right. So I had a situation. It's also a person, well, it's a light situation. A person says, listen, I'm working with numbers related to accounting. This is to understand how to realize that I'm starting to hold myself back. Well, I mean, killing your own work. It's simple. Keep an eye on the channels on Google. He says, and what? That's it? I say, that's it? A couple of days later, he writes, listen, and it turns out about 30, 40 minutes, I have productivity, and then that's it. Then I torture myself. So, how did you get out of that situation? And he says, I take a moment to breathe. About 5 minutes. Just paused, refocused, 30 minutes. I took a breath, shouted a bit, got my productivity back, and then dove back in. He has another 30, 40 minutes. And he found that equilibrium point, which only works for him. That doesn't mean everyone should do it that way. Only in his case. When someone acts on their energy, things quickly fall into place. With the feeling of their own energy and making further steps based on that, then it suddenly turns out that everything starts to work out for him very quickly. If we move from a position of something else, well, there's no energy in that anymore. It's about something different. Then, so, lightness. Don't make any serious decisions if you can't feel your energy at all. It becomes completely inaccessible. And all serious actions come only from the position that everything flows to you. It's obvious that this flows. The heart burns. Freely, the intention is manifested. In the channel in the head. You flow into the flawless state of the next show. In other scenarios, your next step isn't simply about miracles, it's just a trip.
Here. From experience, well, from family experience, when I met my beloved wife, my second one, yes, and I was just overflowing with this love, with this heart. And as soon as I was overflowing after that, I just bam, and got something.
Why does this happen? The question, right?
Yeah, and a few times, and then I kind of got used to it. I was already accustomed to it, and I understood that, well, I didn't really react anymore. And you kind of end up ignoring it. Well, into ignoring it, right? But you need to cost it, so it turns out to be going down?
Look, I'm explaining. There is indeed a big difference between conditional love and the state of love. Every time a person conditions in their mind this wonderful state, someone else, a girl, a woman, a wife, whether we like it or not, we direct our attention to that person and we merge with them. And it turns out that there is a more vibrant process. It's obvious the heart is burning. Here are the wings. I showed up and my productivity is insane. I can move mountains. And there is a second process. I merge with another person. I direct my attention to the outside world. And my consciousness starts to drain away. When our consciousness starts to drain away, the inner mechanism says, hey, stop. You're bleeding out. You're going to drain completely. Stop doing that. In your value system, the external has become more valuable than the internal. And this needs to be stopped. People don't take these things into account at all. And they run parallel, and because of love, they hide. So, when a person indeed loves conditionally, they start to cling. And this clinging is slowed down by our soul. Because when we cling to something, in the overwhelming majority of cases, we lose our vitality. So we start to crystallize quickly, to tighten up. And so, for you to let go, some event happens that pushes you away. That's why I constantly speak out loud about unconditional love, love as a state. So I entered this state and a friend came to me. We interacted and my friend left. My state is unshakable. My friend called me and said, I'm not coming to see you anymore. My state is unshakable. I'll say, yes, it's sad, but it's okay. And my heart will keep burning because there is no clinging. Because I've already learned my lessons with this clinging. What's the mechanism? What's its essence? Where are we directing it? Our attention flows, and so does our consciousness. It flows, it spills out. Our body is fluid. That simply spills out is our body. It's also this fluid, easily spreadable part of our body. Accordingly, imagine a situation. So, is there something you like in this world? And you start to attach your hand to it, attach your leg, nailing it down. At the level of physics, this is some kind of nonsense, but at the level of energy, we do it with ease. We just dive right in. And your soul says, hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? Why are you pushing me in there? I want to be here. Well, I'm exaggerating a lot. That's why every time we put something more important than our own soul, this is still, kind of a philosophy, more important than our own soul. What is this? It's completely unclear at all. Technically, when you keep your focus inside yourself and your energy, your consciousness doesn't spill out anywhere. It continues to circulate around you, multiplying. As soon as you release your attention somewhere, you start to leak. Some percentage flows, no problem. Disrupt balance, problem starts. But we can disrupt this balance. And as soon as we disrupt this balance, the problem begins. Yes, consciousness flows into us. Yes, it leaks out. When more flows in than flows out, our awareness grows. We see more, we are capable, we are resilient. We are stable and we have insights. Almost every 5 minutes. When more leaks out than flows in, we die. We literally die. We dry up. Our mobility crystallizes. And at that moment, there's an impulse from the soul that says, stop doing what is currently more important than me. When a person is completely sincere, they have very fast energy, very quick consciousness. When a person applies, their will, meaning their circumstances are pressing down on them, and they're like, no way, I'm going to break through. This inner will, it's iron. He has very fast energy at that moment, very quick consciousness. And if he gets stuck to an object in the external world in this state, he actually starts to die. And it will immediately be somehow stopped in some way. It could be an illness, it could be an injury, it could be a conflict. It can be anything, but it will pull you away, knock you out of that state. So when you love someone, try to love while keeping your attention on your heart.
Here's a question, a serious question, a question of motivation. Because, it's in childhood, right? It's curious. What about all of this? Everything this in childhood, it was all very simple. About wizards, about fairies, that's how it all works there. As the years went by, when everything was already serious, then, practices. There, tratete. And every time I came home, they would say, she was like, well, just nothing at all. My neighbor is watching and says, listen, why do you need this? And I thought about it once. I think, why do I need this? And I realized that to this day, I still don't understand why I need this. I understand that I can't not do it. But why? I don't understand. And you keep saying that if you don't know where you're going, what are you anyway? Where are you going? It's like I have this kind of identity crisis. What do you think about that?
When a person moves through their life, they think they need many things. Then, after getting them, it turns out they weren't needed. So, after getting that, it suddenly turns out that it wasn't really that necessary after all. The same goes for relationships. At first, while the hormones are active, while the body is young, it seems like that's the only meaning of your existence. Existence defined. When you're young, it seems like that's the only meaning of your existence. Change becomes difficult. Initial excitement fades. You just get lazy to change anything. Naturally, there are no more of those bursts of excitement that were there at the beginning. And this applies to everything. Cars, apartments, wealth, everything in general. At some point, yes, a person starts to wonder, what is the meaning of everything that's happening? And the meaning, in essence, remains the same for everyone. Human doesn't want to die. That's it. He wants to live. And best part. What's interesting about this, if we start to dive further into this direction, inside yourself, so with this question, with this request, it turns out to be an even more interesting fact. It's not that you're trying to figure out how to do it, but rather, you come to the realization that you're trying to remember it. To pull it out inside you, what was that? You knew that. It was once truly in your perception, but now it's entirely and utterly washed away. When that call inside me was there, I was looking too. I went through a huge number of masters from various traditions. When I found that very person whom I indeed called my teacher and treated as my teacher, so much without allowing myself in that direction to not complicate the learning process at all, not to add anything unnecessary. A person I trusted very much, and I continue to do so, because I have seen the effectiveness of all these learning processes: becoming, development, the world, descriptions, philosophy, practices. Where be with all them? So I managed to realize why. How does it feel that you are still trying to remember? There is only one being. I often talk about this. This is the one single being. It divided itself into multiplicity. But the connection hasn't gone anywhere. The connection remains. And this division into multiplicity creates the expansive space of being that exists. And thus, at least in our heart, there are spaces, but that's not the point. That is, being at the peak of this dismemberment, at its very end. It seems to us that this is all we have. And this is what needs to be saved, because you can't perceive anything else at all. For you, it's obvious that there is you, and there is your mom, and you are separated, with nothing in between you. But when you get to the energy, the connection with the parent becomes absolutely clear. Yes, it's just like a needle and thread. Moreover, this connection can be severed, and it can be established with another person. With a husband, with a wife, this connection is formed. Already there, being with your child, regardless of whether you are a father or a mother, we have these connections. You could say horizontal, between each other. But it's very powerful. I'm simplifying, but there is a vertical connection that connects us to the original state, with that same place where the original is still undivided. Here we have time. Here, through the lens of time, it seems to us that this happened a long time ago. And there in the future, something else will happen, something that hasn't been done yet. It's illusion, uniqueness in general, In this whole universe, from a certain perspective, there is no past or future at all. It's all happening at once. Like this, an infinitely complex photograph. Originally in its pristine state and in yours. In a divided state, it exists all at once. Yes, and when you are at the tip of its division, you can't know it in any way. You can't see it. But you still have a subconscious feeling somewhere that you are something greater. When you start to move inside this organism through practices, through exercises, little by little, step by step, the most, in my opinion, the beautiful movement is through your heart. That's you. First, you reach for it, then you realize that you've reached something, it's a single whole. There are no gaps, none at all. Jumping over the void. No, you just keep moving, diving deeper. And under the influence of, after some time spent in practices, or through accelerators like asceticism, you can reach the moment where you originally are just to be there with your perception and perceive absolutely all the space, absolutely all of reality. This outside, and at that moment, calmness comes.
I remember as a child lying in my crib, this state when I would look at the ceiling and painfully try to remember. I remember it so vividly. And I tell Anton, well, we moved on to the question of motivation and everything else. He is absolutely right to remember. It turns out I was trying to remember my original self.
And the funny thing is, if we try to remember by turning our radar to the outside world, we start to die even faster. We start to crystallize even faster. Because the entire external world around us is even harsher than we are. This couch isn't as mobile as I am. If I focus on it, even if I draw it right now, the couch, it will still be rigid. It will still be just an image. But if I start to turn my radars inward, and someone somewhere at some point told me, explained, conveyed to my inflamed state that in the heart, this passage. In the heart, I start to let myself go there, to dive in. At some point, the outside world completely stops existing for me. And then, at some point, it becomes obvious to me, I'm everything. And after a few more iterations of diving in, I find myself in a primordial state that can observe all of this. Behind the scenes. But all it takes is to stop. The practice, the asceticism, or to remember that you still need something here. Some passion is unfulfilled, some duty is incomplete. Your perception turns back into the body. The senses kick in, and all that you have left is just the memory of what you've experienced. That's why I constantly tell everyone, guys, satisfy your passions. If you need something here,
Something better, right?
don't deny yourself anything. Yes, you need to understand that there are others around you just like you, and your interests may either align or not. But that's easy to account for. But if you haven't finished something here, then even the perception and memory of your primordial self won't save you. Because when you perceive yourself, originally, then you start asking yourself, what else is there to do? Other than diving into these illusions endlessly, what is there to do? Anything else?
Well, that's the picture.
You need to go it.
Yes.
You need to go it. So we don't worry about anything. We just fulfill our desires, whims, and needs, the remaining ones. And alongside this, periodically, sometimes, we try to dive a little deeper. To dive inside your heart's bindu, all practices, all exercises have long been told, shown, and provided. You just have to do it. Yes, and don't forget about your stresses.
Very often, situations like that happen in life. When you realize, damn, this definitely happened. It has happened multiple times, especially lately. This keeps repeating at some crazy speed. What?
Especially lately. What have you been doing lately? What practices have you been practicing?
Well, I practiced energy practices, the first course, the second course, mysteries, elements.
I saw you on the 16th at the practice dedicated to Shianka. And this was not the first time in your life. So I'm telling you, explaining, it's simple here. Our world is multidimensional. As long as you sit inside your physical body and perceive with your senses, you can't perceive this multidimensionality in any way. That's impossible. The senses always perceive one-dimensionality. Yes, as soon as, under the influence of practices, your consciousness, and specifically your consciousness, we can either perceive through the filter of our senses, or we can perceive directly. As soon as our consciousness gains mobility, and finally, little by little, detaches from the senses, we begin to perceive the space surrounding us in the nearest dimensions. In the nearest dimensions. The physical body is located, which made similar choices, more or less, like you, but just a little, another body, a little bit, with little nuances, differently. These nuances are so insignificant, so petty, that the scenarios are practically identical. But there is a small difference.
The physical body, is it my physical body or not mine?
Our physical bodies are multidimensional. We just can't see this dimension. Very often this multidimensionality...
I'm stuck.
Yes, very often. This multidimensionality of the physical body is seen as the past and the future. Especially gifted claim this is the past and future, but does not correspond to reality. Because our physical body is also dimensional, it is too, and it can be seen manifested in many variations. To consider, manifested in many variations. I understand, yes, and each body...
Like frames or not?
Like 10 movies on one hard drive. So you have 10 movies with the same actor on one hard drive. Leonardo DiCaprio. How many movies has he made? Well, I don't know. Probably around 50 already. Just imagine that you have 50 movies on one hard drive with the main character Leonardo DiCaprio. You watch one movie and he's a con artist. You watch another movie and he's a businessman, you see. In the third movie, he dove underwater with the ship. And it's all the same actor, the same person. This is what exaggerated multidimensionality looks like. So there is you with a soul. There are multiple options. Every time when you make a decision, there's a chance that another line of possibilities will emerge. When our consciousness steps away from the character, that is, when you stop being the actor and you start to look at things a little differently. When you step back, there's an opportunity not only to see these different scenarios and think, oh, maybe this is the past or the future, but also to see those scenarios a little ahead and a little behind. In other words, the spectrum of perception of the timeline expands. And the more mobile your consciousness is, the more you are his. The more you pull apart, the more you delve into the body of your second attention. In the second attention in consciousness, in the multidimensionality, the more it remembers. From there it pulls out these pieces. And these pieces pop up in your mind. I already know what's coming next. Oh, that's how it is.
I was recently in the bathhouse and I realized that the body feels things completely differently. The processes happening in the bathhouse, the body feels the brooms and the energy differently. So the person who is the bath attendant, the one who steams you, he performs his rituals and I can feel it, how my arms stretch out. Like me, like two brooms, these are two huge hands, moving the broom across my stomach. They were using the brooms and kind of brushing everything off. And I could really feel how this spinning happens and it goes into my legs, just flying away, all of it. These threads, all of them, it never happened like this before. And now, well...
So now you have developed extrasensory perception and you notice these things now. And there's a person who doesn't have extrasensory perception, but man, I was in the bathhouse and it felt so good. And now you see why it felt good.
Yeah. I used to not feel this at all and didn't understand what it was, but now it's just something fantastic. Well, you can really do anything with the body, right?
Well, it depends on the skill of the bath attendant. Yeah, Yes, you can.
Yeah, no, basically, me. Then another acquaintance steamed me and I felt, it's happening with my energy. I understood that the bath attendant's uninvolved, right?
Observe this process. Tango is always danced by two. Yes, these people start appearing around you, the ones you deserve. If you are worthy, these people will be similar in their essence, so you work on improving yourself. A more skilled bath attendant comes to you, and you have the opportunity to compare, because if you don't change yourself, then people will be more or less the same. Of course, I can say now that the state of a person who doesn't practice changes. Yeah, and the state of a practicing person changes too. And so it might give the impression that different people come around. But in reality, people always come in relation to your inner state. A person's inner state has worsened, tightened up, and slowly, all enemies start to surround them. On the contrary, it has loosened up, opened up, and friends and acquaintances are around. Accordingly, when a person practices, their state is more stable. So, the people around you can change, but in their essence, they are the same. But if you improve your state even more, well, now I can talk to you in a more serious tone. Even more facets will open up, like in your yantra. So the person who comes to you will be in line with you. And accordingly, you'll say, yes, it turns out it depends on the person. But for now, it means it hasn't happened yet.
Uh-huh. And here's something else, I feel that way too. I used to feel that way too. At night, when I woke up, I understood that the center itself somehow works. Well, of course, I usually like to sleep on my side in a fetal position, and when I turn onto my back, I immediately catch myself feeling that all my centers are opening up from my legs, and I feel them so deeply and vividly. They're really hot, like they take turns one after the other. They're hot opening up. They really open up one after the other like that. They open up, and now I'm thinking, how should I sleep? So it turns out when I'm lying on my side, I'm kind of constricted, right? And they don't have that active movement, something like that. So they opened up. When I just lay on my back at night, I felt that opening, and a wave of heat went through my whole body.
Keep practicing. You just have to, and despite everything and against all odds, no matter what position you're lying in, despite that, the places where you lay down to sleep, your energetic state should be independent of that. This is the main essence of how to get to where you want to be, but can't. The level of your inner strength, the level of rigidity, your position and rigidity here doesn't mean that you're cruel, some kind of harsh, right? Walking around like that. See, always on edge. It's not me, but the rigidity of the state. Here you lay down. Phew, the centers have opened. That's how it is for me. And now I'm going to lie down the way my physical body wants. And my centers, I'll try to keep everything in that flowing state. There are different things in yoga, yes. Yes, wise. Wise, that's absolutely right. And so when a person reaches the perception of their own energy, just like that, yes, this can be done, and believe that it works, and it really works. You can reach your energy through perception, extrasensory perception, and observe, oh, how it moves when I do this. How does it move when I do this?
That's how it feels.
That's absolutely right. So it all has an impact. But if we set ourselves the task constantly to surpass ourselves, to go beyond our limits, then our independence should also grow. Independence from the state of physics, independence from the mental environment around you, regardless of what's happening in the world. And there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in the world right now. It's very hard to be independent from that. And so when a person reaches some insane strength in their state, when their heart is on fire and against one, and against the crowd and against inside, not against, inside some kind of state, and nothing can really be done with him, then nothing remains, except for that person in this space to place realities where he will find himself among those like him. And when you find yourself among people whose hearts are on fire, you just enjoy it. That's it. Nothing here. It's not complicated. And we practice, we train, so that this position remains unshakable.
Well, right now it's very difficult. Right now, I just want to communicate with such people all the time.
Hold on, Sash.
Hearts are burning. And you feel like there's a lack of that warm communication. Of course, I want to give as well. I'm ready, well, where to?
Are you talking about conditioning right now?
Okay.
Look, you can really say you want to breathe, but for whom?
Well, I get it.
You just burn. And you burn no matter what and against all odds. And there's also a point, it's not obvious, but it's there, that there was life before you learned this. Definitely, yes. And this life has left its consequences. And those consequences will come back to you. So we can't just brush off everything we've already done. Yes, and now your heart has ignited. Let's say you were sitting, practicing, and you weren't interacting with reality. This is how my journey goes. I was sitting in the temple, and I was completely immersed in the technique, in the technical side. I was opening my energy, And when I'm like this, I can even move a shana aside. I'm good. I'm taking a step beyond this complex. The outside world says, come here. The bills have arrived. Feel free to pay them. You're actually in a position to do this right now. And whether I like it or not, I'm starting to figure this out. And my potential, my energy starts to leave me. Yes, but it's not because I'm bad or that I did something wrong. It's because living in an unconscious state, I messed things up. And they will have to be somehow realized to do something about it. So, when a person opens their heart, they might find themselves in a situation like this, that he might ask himself, why has everything suddenly become so bad around me? No, it's not bad. It's just that right now you have the strength, you have the opportunity to settle your debts. And so, when all of this finally runs out, and when a person has settled their debts, what are these debts? So it's like how you are with the world, that's how the world is with you. Reality, and you interact. Reality manipulates you. Balance achieved. As many manipulations with reality, so reality will manipulate you. That's when everything has balanced out and come to an end. That's when nothing remains, except to place you among others like you. But while this transitional process is going on, yes, there might be something. Well, I just want to be for a while, but for now, something still isn't coming together. Something is holding me back. That something is our actions that we haven't compensated for yet. Just don't stop.
Yes, thank you. Yes. And there are also other slightly different situations that are very common right now. It's as if reality is warning me. So, well, for example, the previous practice of Sri Yantra, I have this interesting story. Can I share a story? Oh. Life was, in short. I ran away from the Sri Yantra practice back then when we were supposed to practice. I'm really sorry, of course, but I couldn't do anything because my head was already hurting.
Are you really okay with that?
I'll explain now. Yes, I parked the car somewhere there. Further away, I misread the address, and my man tells me before that, do you know where to go? I said, yes, I don't know. Well, I'll just sit down now, yeah, and see what's the difference anyway. Well, in the end, I looked at another house.
It happens, especially with the current navigation.
Yes, that's one kind of signal, you know? I need to take a look. I arrive and I don't see the house that I have in my mind at all. I parked in a different parking lot and quickly paid for 2 hours of parking. I ran. In the end, I found not the 12th house, but the 15th one. But I didn't bother to move the car anymore. Wash hands, spill thermos water. The room where you can wash your hands. I realize that I have water from my thermos in my bag, and I start spilling it out. See my keys falling in the toilet. I'm going to empty my bag, and the keys are going to fall straight into the toilet. I see it happening in advance and instinctively start to throw things out, meaning I'm emptying my bag into the toilet, and the car keys fall in there. I don't know how I managed to pull those car keys out so quickly. There you go. So then, I place those keys down to let them dry. In this way, perhaps, maybe, I warned myself that I should not forget about that parking in order to pay for it further. In the end, I forgot that I needed to pay for it again. And I'm sitting here, thinking about what's going to happen now. They're going to come and take my car, and I can't even think straight. So I'm running to move the car, I get there, and well, somehow, I manage to feel a bit of that energy there, but later at home, I delved deeper into that practice. So then, I realized the keys fell and I wanted them to dry. The man who told me to check the address was warning me. The man who told me to check the address was a warning, but there are so many such situations. But there are many situations like that. No.
Or did I make it up for you? No, this all makes sense. It's just that the explanation isn't something I'm ready to agree to. Yeah, look. There is multivariance. Always implies parallelism. It seems to us that we're living life, but in reality, we're not living life. We're just watching a cartoon. And I've realized that too.
After the retreat,
we have the opportunity to shift this little needle that's running along the groove and move it to another groove. When you see that opportunity, you can make a decision completely consciously. How will it go from here? In most cases, we rush around.
I was rushing.
And rushing keeps you on the same groove. Yes, But at that moment, you have a real opportunity opening up thanks to awareness, thanks to the results of practice. And after practicing a bit, to hold back your rush and take a different action and step into a different groove where there's no hassle with the car, where keys don't fall into the toilet. By the way, a quickly picked up item doesn't count as having fallen.
But they actually work easily.
You could have avoided all of this,
I understand.
and such a variation of events exists. But you couldn't look at it. I couldn't switch mine. Attention, you couldn't take the action that would have moved you onto a different path. And it stayed that way. This practice is only available in the recording, but today you have this practice available. Basically, it's only in the recording that you have access to. Exactly. In real time, the moment is missed and there's no way to get it back. Yes, there will be other moments, but now it will take you longer to achieve your goals. Since you're moving through these practices, and every time. In our everyday life, if we don't rush, and rushing is a really big problem, it's like a crazy stump that you keep banging yourself against. First the foot, the toes, and then the head, because it falls.
I never rush at all. I'm always calm. I don't understand what that was on this screen. It's like right here.
And I'll explain that now too. There are several aspects. There's one more thing. When you simply fear letting yourself reach a completely different level of life, fear,
Nothing seems like anything anymore.
it only seems, that's for sure. I had thoughts along those lines. Oh, I'm not ready for that yet. I need to study a little more. You need to wait for a while. Although we can do events, please, even without a hurry. That's how I started our story. So, when a person just simply fears taking action, taking a step,
I want to purposefully discuss something. I don't see any further path ahead, maybe. So,
but how can you do it?
well, yeah, if I don't take that step, how can I even...
You only see the scenario that your perception simply allows you to. So, no, look, here's the thing. When a person is really faced with the choice to step up to another level, onto a different path, then they automatically have an understanding that they will have to live differently, they will have to live more qualitatively and more impeccably. And a person can not want to live more impeccably. So a person is used to being careless.
I agree. That's present.
So when we aspire to something, you need to understand that the demands will be completely different. And it's precisely the fear that now there will be tasks that I won't be able to handle, that I won't be able to manage, that I won't have what it takes. It's just fear, because as soon as you say, no, that's it, I'm jumping in anyway, I know it will be harder, all of that, it will be different, it will be unclear. I'm jumping in anyway. Are you jumping in too? So wait, what was there to be afraid of? And it seems there's really nothing to be afraid of, because there's a rule. We are always capable of handling the situations we find ourselves in. Always. At first, you might not be aware of these strengths, you haven't used them yet, but once you find yourself in these situations and start using these strengths, you asked me a question about how I was doing massage, and my energy lit up. How did that happen? I was doing massage, and my energy lit up. How did that happen? It just wasn't in demand. And just sitting in practices like that wasn't enough for you to light up, because there was a lack of causality. And it's only in action, only at the moment when you say, I need this subconsciously. I need to use all my skills, all of your knowledge. It all immediately hits the limits of your capabilities. When it reaches the limits of your capabilities, it's also simple. It's also simple. It's also simple here. I really liked it a lot. And so when you jump into something completely unknown to you, area, space, more quality, more worthy, more enjoyable. At first, from here to there, you have no idea at all when you've already gotten into it. Suddenly, it turns out that you can do everything. No need there. You don't need to stretch yourself, and there's no need to rush or learn. You just gradually keep getting more and more fired up. Seeing this transition, an enemy called fear appears, and the desire to wait just a little bit longer, to hold off a bit more. I always say, well, what are you waiting for?
No, well, right now I'm hoping that we have Peru ahead of us.
Peru?
That's where Sri Yantra is. So I will catch up on what I've missed.
And Mom jumped in there too and jumped out. Well, let's be aware.
No, I immediately, even at the secrets of the elements, I got there, I asked to join myself.
Remember,
The very first one, I said, take me to Peru.
and then what?
I was allowed. No, I paid for everything.
Well, maybe you didn't jump off.
Something's not right. It provides information. I went to Tibet. Well, I was the last one to jump into Tibet.
You're so brave. Yeah, just keep it up. That's it. You have everything. You're doing well. Just sometimes. Our hidden qualities only reveal themselves at the moment of maximum demand. Once upon a time, just a few seconds, we literally got to Ashan, show the Siths. Well, just show the Siths, and that's it. He says, well, how can I show you if everything is fine here and nothing threatens me? That's when there are no other options. When your body understands this is the limit, and your mind knows this is the limit, you can't jump out of this, then you truly tap into your potential. You can't jump out of this just like that. That's when you really tap into everything you can. If you're all spread out in comfort, yeah, you're doing well. Everything's predictable, everything's great, but that's where your development stalls.
Well, I feel like I'm drowning. So that's how it is in the practices, and what's next? Well, I'm here practicing.
And then you need to jump into the unknown. Everything is already known here. And it's an endless process.
So it's working out for now at the moment. Yeah. No? No for idle?
You doubt, but you keep moving.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
All is great.
Anton, right now, a lot of spiritual teachers are gathering crowds, retreats, and if you look at who's showing up, mostly it's women. Well, about 90%. There are very few men. Who shows up? Mostly it's women. Well, about 90%. There are very few men. How can you explain that?
Very simple. A man by his nature is an achiever. He doesn't like helpers. He doesn't like anyone getting in his way. He doesn't like anyone bothering him, getting underfoot. He wants to do it himself. The position of masculine energy, it's when you do it yourself, not when someone holds your hand. Even a child in a male body says, no, I can do it myself, I can do it myself. That's the sense of self, independence. So, masculine energy, it encourages a person to strive, to achieve things on their own, to study on your own, to look on your own, to try on your own, to touch all of this by yourself. There is feminine energy. Feminine energy, it is more. Encourages taking care of others, helping, giving hints, held by the hand, stroked on the head during the process. So it's a completely different position. If we look at the level of psychology, the recommendations for raising a child, the upbringing of a boy and a girl is like earth and sky. Girls need what boys don't. What is necessary for girls is contraindicated for boys. Therefore, everything that is necessary for girls is contraindicated for boys. That's why when a person moves based on their gender, they perform these actions differently. They perform these actions differently. So, yes, the female audience predominates, but there is places where the male audience predominates, where martial arts, military training, games with guns, when you're using those automatic weapons, paintball, airsoft, that is where you are responsible for yourself, accountable, where you train yourself to be the best, where there's a competitive element, where you have to fight, where you show yourself and can potentially become a hero. There can never be two heroes, just one. So this is conditioned in different ways of expression. The same energy, which indeed moves in the male body more straightforwardly, it's called the energy of Shiva. In the female body, it moves in a more swirling manner. It's called Shakti, and that's how the energies Shakti, they are effective. They manifest there where there is care, help, monitoring, settings, transmission, state of synchronization, tuning, resonance. Easy there. A man is indeed something more rugged, tough, self-reliant. to achieve, to win, to compete. And even the training is structured. Well, who's bigger? Who's better? So they are constantly competing. It's just a feature of the energy. That's all. If spiritual teachers organized, I don't know, a race around the linga, maybe there would be more guys there.
So where did you study? Did you practice with your own?
Everything was very interesting here. Where I practiced, there were roughly the same number of men and women.
Yes, women.
Yes. And there. Basically, there wasn't any different attitude towards gender because the energy of gender doesn't exist. It's just a way to talk about it. In the male body, there is also vortex energy, and the energy of Shiva is masculine. The energy of Shiva is masculine. In the female body, there is energy. Shiva, a ray of intention, and the same vortex of Shakti. So, the energy is present both. It's just that in female bodies, one type of energy is more pronounced, while in male bodies, another type of energy. When a person starts practicing, they strive to express both variations of these energies. Both of these energies equally. Yes, a person can come into practice with a skewed manifestation.
They go in there, into this temple to practice not. That's when they're already sitting in the temple. In the temple, yes, there is no longer any difference. Man, woman, yes, in the temple, they sent down a boy and a girl. Here.
And why do they go in? Because they were trained in martial arts in the temple. Payato calories. It was called, there are swords, there are 108 types of weapons, plus hand-to-hand combat. This attracted the guys. There is training there, there's this rigidity, there's conditioning, there's gymnastics. So there are these aspects. That, it nurtures your independence. And there are meditations, rituals, decorations, which attract feminine vibrations.
What?
Of course, and when all of this is manifested at the same time, when it's a temple and there is everything there they had both Sanskrit and massage. Oh God, everything just flew out of my head. Any other aspects? We did that there too. The masculine and feminine are attracted in principle. In the same amount? But those who came there to practice martial arts, after a while they do everything else, like decorations with flowers. Some kind symbol, let's say a symbol of energy, and meditates and gazes into the infinity. And the women who come there specifically for beauty, for meditation, suddenly find themselves with swords, with shields, jumping around the hall in various martial churches.
So there you get this balance.
Yes, and all of this is manifested not only on the level of energy, but also on the level of physics.
Here's another question regarding practices and the physical body. I've been practicing for a short time, but I've already noticed that changes in my body are happening.
Crazy.
So this is...
We are connected. We are a conglomerate of physics, psyche, and energy. Look, there's a person sitting there who was bragging to me recently, and he's looking at me. Yes, that's absolutely right. So, a person who starts to boost their energy can't avoid these processes in their body.
You don't need to take 10,000 steps anymore.
Yeah, it won't be unnecessary.
Well, it's clear the body...
It won't be unnecessary, but it happens on its own. And these 10,000 steps will have an impact on a person, like 100,000 steps, 10 times more effective. The same number of physical repetitions, but the effectiveness is 10 times greater. When a person works at all levels, then if there is energy in his work, it multiplies all of this. If a person only trains physically, yes, they might not have enough time in their life to change their physique. Basically, what do athletes do? They use substances, pharmaceuticals. Even they can't cope just by training. Even they end up on some kind of crutches, basically. But if a person uses energy, lets it build up, then, and allows it to keep building up constantly, to build up, then the impact on the physical body is so intense that sometimes even the body can't handle it. And there have been such cases too. When someone tells me, hey, I don't know, the legs get all tangled up just after the energy work. That's the build up. Why is all this happening? Because everything we've accumulated there, everything that's extra, everything that's foreign, As soon as the body receives a resource, an energetic resource, a flow of consciousness, it removing everything unnecessary. That is why it is conditioned. My warning for those who have foreign objects in their bodies, implants, replaced joints, some kind of technical devices in the heart, technical devices in the heart. Why? Because the body was fading. It saw, and then suddenly there was a surge, power, energy came in, and he's like, what's going on inside me? What is this all about? And this could be the one that supports the heartbeat. And so the body rejects it, and the heart is like, wait, I can't do without this. So it all starts to build up like a snowball. Or let's say a joint was replaced, and the body is like, what's this thing that's stuck in me right now? It shouldn't be in me. I, as a cell, as my original nature, know that this shouldn't be here. Well, go on, get out of here. The immune system suddenly jumps up, and it starts to reject everything. Inflammations appear. To smooth this out and balance it, there are special practices. I'll be showing them soon, by the way. Maybe I've already shown them. Naturally, the impact on the body is colossal, to the point that the body might not even be able to handle it. Martial arts aren't for turning us into fighting machines. They're a way to foster our energetic and spiritual growth. Not to turn us into fighting machines? No, it's one of the ways to create the most favorable conditions for our energetic and spiritual growth.
So anyway, chronic diseases, if you practice, they just burn out over time.
They can disappear.
They can, or
knows it explain.
no, if you work, practice, they will go away.
Now I'll explain. Emphasis is not there. When a person practices, they unleash a huge potential. He has this potential. It can be directed in a way that will destroy oneself even faster. And it can direct this potential in a way that it will only ignite and grow. Where does he direct his potential? We can only become aware thanks to the indicators. It's the feeling of channels on the head that they flow through the brain, through the skull, through the cheek area, through the neck, and through the shoulders. It just flowed through me. I can clearly feel it now. And if I can clearly feel this throughout the day, and in the evening it continues to flow just like it did, it means I've directed all my potential towards evolving myself, towards my own development. Naturally, all illnesses will leave me. But by releasing my potential, I can somehow react to reality, that I'll hold myself back. I'll just energetically compress it. And I'll have much more strength. I was half alive there. I couldn't even compress it there. But here, I have a lot of strength. I can compress myself even faster. So there should be indicators. We have free will. We can wield this power even for our own destruction. Suicide? And so, to avoid doing that, it's vital for us to be aware throughout the day. A channel on the head, and even better, it's just wonderful. It's the fire in the heart. If I direct all my potential towards perceiving the fire in my heart and igniting it, performing the other actions, without any exaggerated importance. So my exaggerated importance is here, and everything else, the accompanying processes, at some point. There's a feeling that everything is happening by itself. Here it is like this. It all comes together, it all works out, it all organizes itself. You always have a path if you have goals. If you don't have a goal, then you just sit there, feeling fulfilled, and one day feels pretty much like the other. So your whole life is in your hands. As it waved, so it happens.
Then the time spent on planet Earth.
As long as you need something here.
As long as something is needed.
If you don't need anything here anymore, everything can go into the body of light. And out.
This is a process that we can control.
It's a process that is in our hands. No one imposes it on us. No one is forcing us to do anything. We have free will. You can be convinced that you want something. But if your heart is burning, if your area of sincerity is open, relaxed, and shining, then when someone starts to convince you of something, you just laugh at it. What do? You just laugh at it. What are you doing? Calm down. Go convince someone else. But if we get confused ourselves, if we don't have access to our own energy, we get all worked up. Here it's right. Something's off. Here it's right. Again, something's wrong. and it goes like this, and then it becomes like that. It's not wrong anywhere. It's just confusing. I don't get it. Why? And that's it, and poof. And the person stumbled.
Then if there's intention, yes.
How to deal with this?
An accident. Nothing will happen to you. I'm still talking about being on the planet Earth.
I'll explain it. So, you might ask yourself, if I build up the muscles in my arm, it won't create a problem for me anymore. Or will it? How are you going to control it? Can you take this arm, all muscled up, and hit yourself in the forehead like that? You know the hit it will be, it ringing. If your arm is weak, you can hit yourself in the forehead. But most likely, there won't be any effect. Practices, exercises, will, intention, love, sincerity, conscience, all of this leads you to insane power, to insane speed. But you're still behind the wheel, you know? This is how you pull it. These are consequences. Well, that's how it is. That's freedom. That's free will. And no one will give you any guarantees because you are free. I really want to get those guarantees that I'm doing something right and everything should be in place.
Yeah, it's not about guarantees here. It's about how it works. I want to feel it out.
Very simple. The rules that I explained about this universe. Explain. If you give to reality love, fire, mobility, energy, then very quickly similar people will gather around you. It doesn't matter at all what status they have in relation to you. If you will stop being yourself, the very one that brought you to this point. And you will become someone for whom that cannot exist. Basically, this cannot be. In principle, it won't happen. What is this? Start to radiate love. Not because you need something, but simply because at this moment, you do it in any way. Just because you live, because you breathe, because you have a body, because you have a heart, and love comes from the heart. You have knowledge about energy. Yes, practices help to accelerate these states. But after the practices, you don't stop doing this. Energy accelerates faster, stronger. That this energy just keeps accelerating and accelerating, faster and faster, stronger and stronger. And at some point, when you meet your child, you'll suddenly see that her heart is open. The energy is flowing, and she is full of life interests and some goals. But you have to take the first step, literally show how it's done.
I remember you said that when you were 12, it was actually with your parents. But still, where does such persistence come from? This whole thing, such an effort. Well, I understand what it is. But still, what's it all for? What for? I'm still talking about this motivation because, well, honestly, it's one thing when you know, yes, where you're going, and another thing when you're just going and have no idea at all. Well, I get that too, yeah, that you're diving into something's happening to you, and then you're just sitting there blinking, not understanding what it is, and there's no one to ask, no one knows. Well, see, you were lucky, well, how to put it, you had such a strong internal motivation, so strong that you immediately found Ashan. How did you find him? Because my searches didn't lead to anything. I realize this. Now I understand all the answers to my questions that I've been carrying for all these years. And now I hear it, I understand it, all the answers to my questions that I've been carrying for all these years. You understand.
There were different motivations. At first I realized that I had been deceived. I'm lied to. They gave me a description of the world that didn't match reality. That outraged me. To the limit, just the intensity.
You're just destroying my understanding of the universe, which has long been shaped by someone.
This initial position has long since faded away. No, I'm not outraged anymore. I don't hold any grievances against anyone at all. But at first, this burned me up.
It burned me up.
There is no Santa Claus.
I absolutely have a start.
It turns out there's something that charges water from the TV screen. It turns out the church is acceptable. that is acceptable. I was born during the USSR, and there were no churches around at all.
Yeah, okay, there were.
Yes, of course. It was a hit. But this was denied, and that was considered unknown. Lord, what is this called?
You don't need to tell me. I'm older than you. I know exactly how you felt about it.
It slipped my mind.
It was separated from the state, and it is still separated now.
Yeah, since my parents were embedded in all the government structures, naturally they embedded me too. This is the perception of reality.
Grandmother's Orthodox Syrian. Here. She was an Orthodox Christian, and the other was a Syrian witch. I have this split personality.
My personality completely fell apart when I found out what. I took it as a deception. But after a while, when I grew up, I realized that no one was deceiving me. They don't know a damn thing. They don't know, of course, and I really loosened my grip back then. So I was looking at my parents like, you tricked me. Yeah. And then I thought, damn, yeah, they weren't deceiving me. They just didn't know. They couldn't do it. I'm right now. Yeah, exactly. I clung to this knowledge. I clung to this. I found these practices. I found exercises, different ones. My growth was unseen as others focused on material. My abilities are growing, and they can't even look in that direction. They can't even perceive it because their attention is completely focused on the material. And then I said, oh, but they actually didn't lie. They just don't understand it. And then I had a different motivation. So if they don't understand it, and I understand it, I can surpass everyone around me. The benefits started to become clearer to me, even to a certain extent more acceptable to the spirit of the society that existed. So I even started to be in a common environment, but back then I didn't know that spiritual development isn't a business. And the more I delved into spiritual development, the poorer I actually became.
Exactly.
Ashan was able to connect in my brain how to do this harmoniously. But I was, that word is just like that. All teenagers, they are maximalists. And this maximalism pushed me aside, searching for energy, searching for spirituality, just ordinary teenage maximalism. But I chose not to have a family, children, and a career. I put it all on the line. In fact, I made a very strong, serious sacrifice back then. I didn't understand that back then, but I sacrificed everything that was familiar and understandable in my way of life. To everyone, everything I have, even my parents were at stake then. Why did I do this? Why did I do this? Maybe because I've been fighting with everyone since I was 12. I was just used to it already. But I was ready for losses. I was ready to let it all go. I was ready to disagree with everyone, even if everyone was talking about it. This also played a role in my development. As a person who says, guys, your state should be independent of the outside world. It shouldn't be vulnerable to the outside world. But back then, those were circumstances that were developing me. When I was looking for a teacher, I probably spent about 10 years searching for one. I went through the hands of some very serious masters. But these masters of a fixed, limited knowledge, after which once I received it, they would say, that's it, go, I have nothing more to tell you. What do you mean? I still didn't understand who I was and where I lived. We promised to teach you this. I still didn't understand who I was and where I lived. We promised to teach you this. So you've learned? That's it, let's go. Seeking answers to my questions about the meaning of events, it became more the meaning of everything that was happening. And at some point, did it grow into something more? At first, I was angry that I was deceived. Then it was about the benefit, the usual benefit, meaning it's cool to do what others can't. Then it was about the benefit, it's cool to be able to do what no one else can. To be able to do what no one else can. It was really cool. Then I realized that it was cool, but somehow it wasn't very applicable. A principle has already emerged. So, well, obviously, yes, about that. That time has been wasted. I already quit from there. So the principle is, well, you have to go all the way. I mean, if I've already started, there were moments when I would sit and think, well, what happened to my friends, my school acquaintances, and perhaps what's going on in their lives now? Who has taken what position? Who has what salary? What about me? I've lost, and I just flew past everything. What do I have left? To admit that I've lost. Arms and legs intact. It seems like I still haven't reached what I wanted. Push now, stop later. It's like I can always hit the brakes later. As long as I have the opportunity, as long as I'm not starving over there, I'm going to push it to the limit. And I made the decision to keep going. I don't care, everything goes to waste. All that is approved by society. I'm moving forward. Walked, found a teacher, a master, a shan. I was blown away by how everything is connected for him, being a spiritual leader. And I can't call him anything else. Because you always look up to him, like him. I want to be just like him. What else can he do, and how did he achieve that? So there's this constant desire to be like him. This is an important parameter. I admired someone and thought, I want to be like that. How does he manage all this? That's how it was. Here I was looking and thinking, I want to be like that because wow, how does he manage all of this? I saw how he built a temple at his own expense, not at my expense. Built a temple, welcomed all, faced resistance. Temple, how he welcomes people there, even though he pushes them away with all his might. But then he also built it all into a cohesive system because for me it was... I didn't really understand initially when I saw that I was actually coming to Shana. This situation happened when the practice of the Sri Yantra was announced. I had no idea what the Sri Yantra was. I just came to the temple grounds to learn a little about energy. This is everything I'm showing you. This is what I was learning there. And then he says they'll practice the Sri Yantra. Oh, I'm going to that. Practice of Sri Yantra. I'm like, oh, I'm going to them. Then he says only my students can go to him. I was like, I don't care, I'm going to them. Well, I'm learning from him, so I'm going. Then he says students are those who have certification. So, the court process comes to engage in practical energy work. You're not students, so guys, just relax. Everything inside me just broke. But I told myself, no, I'm going there. I don't know why I've always been so stubborn. But I caught him. I said, Roshan, I'm determined to come to the Sri Yantra practices. He was like, of course, you're my student and you're this and that. I said, no, but I'm still coming. I'm determined. I don't see any other options. That's how it is. Yeah, I'm not quite there yet. Yeah, I still haven't done that. Yeah, I haven't read these mantras 100,000 million times. But I can't miss this opportunity. Something in me resonated subconsciously. In each of you, something subconsciously resonated that you need to go to this bearded guy, not to some other bearded guy. They need to be supported. That's it. And I had no other options. In my eyes, there were no other options. There was no other options. He saw that in me and said, well, actually, all right. I'll just let you go for the practice. I'm going to practice. And another person coming, a closer friend asks, can I join? Then I am. The person who has been studying with him, who is already in some close relationship, asks him, hey, Shan, I also want to come. Am I ready? To which Shan replies, no, you're not ready. He says, all right, then turn around and leave next time. I said, what are you doing? It all boiled up inside me. I'm like, are you an idiot? What are you doing? But I kept quiet. I was like, okay. I thought, I got what I wanted. That's it. I just hugged myself and sat there. Here, I didn't understand how someone could brush it off. And for them, it's a given. Brushed it off, I'm different. For him, it was just a given. Why is he like that? And I'm different. Yeah, who the hell knows? No one is ready. Well, no one is ready for this yantra. When he started showing this, I'm like, wait, how do you reach perception? Then it was already forming in my mind, and he was already saying it out loud, that in any situation you find yourself in, you have enough of everything to get through it successfully. I'm like, wait, I have enough of everything to get through this successfully. And somehow I let go a bit, relaxed. And everything went well. Everything went wonderfully. But I was so filled with the fact that I gained this knowledge. That was that period of life. That was the moment when I absolutely realized that, for the most part, I had nothing more to do here. That's it, my training. At that moment, it was over. I definitely understood that I didn't want to be a martial arts master. I definitely understood what I didn't want to do. Those endless rituals with closed eyes and memorizing all the mantras by heart. I already understood then that I didn't want to be a massage master. I realized that I found what I came here for. This is it. But out of inertia, I stayed there for a while, learning. You could discuss this. There were a lot of cool moments. I even saw a person who came to take my place. So there's a group, it's yantra, and each person occupies a certain point in space according to their manifestation. Even in the hall, when we sat down, everyone sat according to that pattern. And I saw a person who came to take my place. At first I was like, what the hell are you doing here? Crap, I'm sitting here. And then I think again, what the hell am I doing here? Well, I don't want to get anything more here. I already have everything. I'm not looking for anything else. I'm no longer worried about anything. And after a while, Ashan took the initiative on his part. I was cowardly in this process. Courage. I didn't have the courage to say to everyone, thank you, I'm leaving. And then Ashan said, it's time for you to go. I said, Ashan. He says, well, are you going to do this? I said, I won't. He says, it's time to go. Well, that was obviously already over 4 months ago. It was obvious to me, but I still tried. Somehow cling to it, somehow hold on, although I understood that I don't need it, it doesn't matter. And I set off on my own, to develop myself, to bring all of this out of myself. After some years, I remembered that it turns out that I, the initiate of Sri Yantra, have the text, I have the knowledge. I started to slowly bring it all out, bring it out, bring it out. Because the first thing I encountered wasn't the fact that I had Sri Yantra. I'm a great practitioner, but I don't have the money to pay for my apartment, buy food or clothes. Because winter is just around the corner. So this is the first thing I encountered. But it turns out that everything is actually very easy to solve, if you know how to work hard. By the way, I also told all of you about this. And as my individual skill grew and developed, you notice that there are, well, those who notice, those who come. There is a possibility of perception during our broadcasts. There is a personal opportunity for perception. It's not the same at all. When you're in the ashram with dedicated practitioners, it feels like you can do a lot. But reaching your goal is challenging. You think you can do a hell of a lot. Upon reaching your personal goal, you realize achieving it, it's only important to you. No one else cares. No one is going to help you. It's only important to you. Everyone else doesn't care about it. No one wants to achieve it, and no one is going to help you. Everyone has their own personal goal. And Shan, let's do that. He says, well then, go ahead and do it. I'm doing well with all of this. If you want to, go ahead. I'm like, yeah, I understand that I can't do this because there's still a lack of quality. And now, being on my own, I was training myself. It's incredibly difficult, but I did it. I had no other option.
And here, probably, we need to go into a bit more detail. I take it, not today. Well, this moment, you understand, right?
And the moment is very simple. My parents were aging. They were getting frail. They could no longer support me. They could no longer help me.
Well, I don't mean physical or material. You're Roz, I take it. Not only in material terms, but also in my internal experiences, in my movements.
Myself. I just knew the rules by which reality works. I knew practices that allowed me to see, but the vision was like, like on New Year's, like a celebration. Wow, it turned out to be quite a way to die. And then again, you struggle, you push yourself, and nothing. I started to train myself because I had no other options left. I haven't built a career. I don't have a family, my parents are old, I should care for them, but I can't even care for myself. I can't even take care of myself. On a material level, I'm gradually knowing and mastering those practices, those settings that I received. These are not spiritual settings. These are the settings for connecting the spiritual aspect, the material aspect, and the mental aspect. It's a connection, a conglomerate, when everything is harmonious, synchronous, just by mastering these settings, without really knowing how to do much. Well, as a student, he kind of knows where to peek, yeah, and where to copy from, but his hands still don't quite work yet. And the master, who for 20 years has been working without any books, with his eyes closed, they'll take care of it for you, and I don't know. If he's an engineer, he'll fix the engine. He doesn't need books anymore. So this is mastery. Another process takes time. And so I started to cultivate my personal mastery, regardless from the presence or absence of honor, regardless of being in the temple or not being in the temple. I really felt it back then. Why do people build temples? Why do they create spaces? Where to practice? Yeah, just being in that space, you're already practicing it. And in Moscow, in an apartment on the 11th floor, when your attention just focuses. Dear, there's some kind of renovation going on, to the left, huh? I went outside and there was a mosquito, then a fly, then a passerby walked by. Yeah, where can I practice then? Then I think, yeah, what the hell? Well, given the circumstances, since I have neither a temple nor a place to practice, I'll practice right where I am sitting. What did this lead to? a huge number of people come to me. Well, come on, Bern, we're running out. Because I trained myself, that's the thing. And it's not something that will just happen on its own. To train, why? Because again, no career, no job, no opportunities to get a stash. There's no stash. It's all been spent a long time ago. There are no rich parents who can support you into old age. There is nothing except for common sense. And that made me dig everything out. And then when my financial situation started to stabilize, I started to feel pretty good, actually. I stabilized not because of the skills I gained in the temple. I stabilized thanks to the skills I gained while I was still in school. We had a vocational training program, and in that program there was a subject called radio electronics. And I'm slowly, little by little, I'm developing in that direction. I was remembering something there. Well, somehow my hands were already doing something. I got into electronics, plus I found it interesting. Tesla technologies, I found that a bit fascinating. It drew me in. And little by little, I developed into an expert skilled in high voltage, high frequency technology affecting people. That brought me a decent income. Technology that can have a certain impact on people. And that has already brought me a more or less acceptable income. Well, we can talk about this topic. So, first your material resources ran out, then you started to manipulate, right? How it seems to me that it's already deep. No, first I dove into spirituality. I was left with nothing on the street. Oh, I started to tinker with matter, to build matter, but I didn't forget about spirituality. That is, I built her based on the world of awareness that I had already received there. And I managed to implement everything. Very quickly, I quickly got used to the material side. I had a good income, a good salary. Then I started to produce these devices myself. Then the war happened. The cards were turned off. I bought all the components from a warehouse in Europe and America. Now I can't even remember the names of those warehouses. DigiKey, I mostly bought things there. Guys, what do we have left? They say there's a capacitor left for 500 rubles, even though it used to cost just a few rubles, 10-15. Suddenly, the clients who ordered these wonderful devices said, hey, wait a minute. We need this, to be pressed or something. So the world has changed. I was left with nothing. That is, they rubbed my ass with my skills. Well, I'm being very blunt, but that's the fact. In this state, when my usual way of making money stopped working, I said, I still have one more skill. And simply, I was ready to take a risk. And that's when another phase of my life began. And basically, I'm ready to take a risk. And another phase of my life began. And you think I boldly went for the first hole in the person. I was completely filled with doubts. I was still worried. Will it work or won't it work? I didn't have any skills in all of this. I became a teacher. I developed as a teacher. Well, basically right before your eyes. Before that, the most I did was this. I was glad that I found someone who had heard about me and with whom I could practice. So to practice, to teach, after a while I taught for dakshina. How much will a person give me? Some gave 100 rubles, some gave 50 rubles. So I understood that I wasn't earning money from this. I was just practicing. I was honing my skills. I was really working on them. But I didn't have an understanding, and these skills are either sufficient or insufficient. And this understanding of sufficiency or insufficiency, the secret community said, do what you know, we'll handle the rest. An organization called the Secret Society said, you do what you can, and the rest, we'll organize it ourselves. I don't know how to sell. I'm still not that great at it. Salesperson. They tell me to give some kind of sales pitch. And I need to get it together. Well, I mean, that's not really like me. They took care of everything. They brought me people. I'm like, am I really cut out for this? All right, go. And I started doing what I know how to do. And in the moment of doing what I know how to do, I realized that everything is actually going well. But I didn't know in advance whether it would work out or not. I didn't know because I understood perfectly in my head that it's one thing when a person comes to you. Practicing the task is not the same kind of responsibility at all. When there are prices, and they, who have known me for a long time, they see how these prices keep rising, and they are rising not because someone is being greedy, but because there are more and more people. I have less and less time. And marketing sees this dissonance and gradually balances it out. So I don't deal with this at all. Sometimes I don't even know what the prices are for which product. There was even a moment about 6 months ago. In my personal chat, they write to me, asking me to tell them about my products. I'm like, okay, a hint comes to me. There was a broadcast. A hint comes to me. Tell them about the prices. And I can't take it anymore. I say, listen, I don't know the prices. What are you trying to tell me? If it's not that in my head, I only have in my head what I really know how to do, what I've trained for. They gradually adapted and said, okay, fine, don't worry about it. Are you doing what you know how to do? We do what we know how to do. And so we have a symbiosis that allows me to get closer to realizing my intention. But as I get closer to realizing my intention, there are a lot of people, now more than 20, full, satisfied, and happy. So I, like a locomotive, push it all forward. I don't know, maybe they add fuel and allow it to keep going, or I don't know, like how a railway lays down the tracks so that there are a lot of people there. Marketers are a few people. There are people who. So 2 people are sitting completely immersed in the process. Without them, I'm like, no hands. Okay, got it. Video, photos, material processing, artificial intelligence database. We have a database, one of the most modern ones in the world right now. So ChatGPT analyzed my videos, created Wikipedia, in short, that you can talk to in human language. It's not me who does all this. These are special people who know how to do this. So this symbiosis that has formed is so beautiful and diverse that I continue to realize my intention even faster, even more effectively. When a person comes to me and asks, what's the right thing to do? I say, it's right. Clearly and distinctly, at least say to your reflection in the mirror, what the hell are you living for? What the hell are you practicing for? What do you want to achieve with this? Well, this is a couple of days' worth of motivation. But when it is absolutely unyielding, it holds you for decades. Yeah, maybe some nuances change there. Then there is no causality at all. There really isn't. That's why it won't work. In reality, there simply isn't another option. You will make it happen.
It turns out that it really doesn't matter anyway. But you have 2 months. And what exactly do you want to achieve?
In accordance with those,
This is the situation that happened, and these ideas disappeared, and the market collapsed. It turns out that this is the right money at first.
you can't work out anything but for the good if you're charged with intention. Because you know that everything that happens around you, if you have intention, brings you closer to its realization. But I could have reacted differently. I could have said, oh no, everything is bad, I still don't have. How can I put this? I have a closed club of practitioners. Yeah, there are probably over 60 people, maybe close to 70. I don't have anything, so I'm just folding my hands. I went to India. Yeah, or I'm going back again, jumping on Ashan's neck. It's just madness, really.
The question is about India. So with all these spare parts, yeah, I actually went to India. First time, spending winter. Then the second time I also spent the winter in India, and for some reason there is this feeling that you want to do more physical work there. You somehow become healthier. We came here, somehow everything starts to press. You don't want to do sports or yoga. All of this just makes you want to give up. It could be that in India you want to run around, but you feel rejuvenated. And here I don't know what it is. Because the funny thing is, will you be wintering there? When I came to India for the first time, we went swimming at an Indian hotel for New Year's.
When I first arrived in India, we went swimming at an Indian hotel for New Year's. I clearly remember this. I wrote it down that New Year's is according to the calendar. Yeah, I'm splashing around in the water. It's great. Why does this happen? Because the load we take on ourselves here, as if it's a given, we can't take that on there because it just doesn't exist. And here you remember about yourself. Here you remember that you're not eternal, that your body needs care. Eternal. That the body needs care. That is, this very awareness is released. Leads you to quite the right conclusions. You need to take care of yourself. But as soon as it's yours, your attention gets scattered, and there are so many distracting factors in the city. You forget about yourself. When you do this on a physical level, at some point, you realize that you're already working towards healing. When you forget about your soul, you simply die. In India, a favorable atmosphere to remember yourself. It's dirty there. It's far from a modern society. It's easy there. It's the same as being in a temple, Lord. Yes, I was one of the few practitioners. Everything worked out flowing. But you can't live in a temple, can you? This is the place of Ashan. This is a place that is already occupied from the start. How I think about building for myself. The thought that I also strive to build for myself, this is it. A structure, a framework, where I can practice even more effectively. Yes, I learned to practice on the 11th floor of my building. From the 14th floor, I understand that there is an opportunity to increase the intensity even more. But for now, not with these prices. I occasionally look, and it makes me feel sick from these prices. I know such opportunity exists. But I also know that if I run away from here, my needs will still be here. Yes, I can forget about these needs for a while. But you're not in India now. Needs or obligations? Your commitments are driven by your needs. If you didn't have those needs, then you wouldn't have those commitments either. Basically, you just enjoy yourself. The first few hours, minutes, days, years, and then it turns out that it lasts longer than you actually want it to.
And then all these commitments pull attention away from him, and I'm not taking care of myself.
So I need to
somehow manage to find balance and go back to India. Well, or to Thailand.
You know, each person builds this balance from your mindfulness, from your courage, from your common sense and wisdom. Everyone, that's when I was building my balance, trading your parents, kicking them out while they were young, and leaving them behind and active. It was a victory. But then I flared up again, and my mom ended up in intensive care. But there was a moment in my life when I flared up once again, and my mom ended up in intensive care, even though I didn't physically do anything. My mom went to intensive care, even though I didn't physically do anything. Well, now we're going to fight. And he has a boom, blood pressure around 200. Such a state? I'm like, wait, what do you mean? How? She used to fight with me before, but now she has stopped. And at that moment, indeed, my understanding of this balance changed. And at some point, it became obvious to me that causing them harm hits me much harder. Then if I just say, okay, they can have everything, I understand that it's wrong. I realized that for a certain period of time, they were parasitizing on me there. Energy vampirism, all that stuff, forget them. I've dedicated time to spirituality that there's no way they can drain me. What can they drain? Let them drain me. An elderly person, let them drain from me. Yeah, let them at least drain from me. It doesn't matter. But before that, I had to grow up. At first, I even tried to prove to them that you can't live like this. It's wrong to ruin your own karma, all of that. And that was for a moment, well, more or less acceptable. Then it became unacceptable. In general, and so as of today, this is the only person on this planet to whom everything is allowed. Even if it's 100 times wrong, I don't care. I don't care, I can handle this wrongness. But I do boost other people from time to time. What?
Got it. Oh, you're talking about vampirism. Right now, yeah, it's interesting. Things like the evil eye, curses that come in, yeah, even the conscious and unconscious ones. They come in like into a person's field and sit there in some kind of matrix and interfere somehow, or they just dissolve. Or even a strong energy, it doesn't even bounce back. How is all of this? There are such things.
First,
how much of a jerk do you have to be for such a mechanism to be turned against you?
just like that? Yes, if you put it out from some family circles, you need to understand you messed up and it returned. There was a reason. Or maybe someone just came to take everything. So there was a reason for that.
Or maybe it's not a mess up. Maybe a person just came in and wants to take everything away, roughly speaking.
What? So you allowed yourself to act like that?
In life, we tie karmic knots.
In this life, we somehow managed to do it. Even while we're still in our mother's womb, we start tying some karmic knots. The child has a character while still in the mother. it already starts to show. Women who have had more than one child, several of them, can clearly say, this one is like this. He behaved like that, but this one behaved differently. Of course. Shvarak and Nazili of dealing, Shvarak and Nazili of dealing. That's why you shouldn't count your karma. Everything's fine. We've managed to mess things up here. In general, the first thing is that you were the one who initiated all of this. We've come to terms with it. We're not complaining. Second, what to do about it? If you simply decide to kick this away, then your place is in the trenches. You'll be fighting. You're resisting. If your decision is going to be to maintain your fiery, loving, harmonious state, even when you can clearly see how a person forms a cluster of energy, of negativity, a crystal that intrudes into your field. You say, well, it's intruding and intruding. Well, then there's a reason for it. It's nothing to worry about. We'll burn it all away now. Right now, I will show the realities of how I want to be treated. We fell into similar situations. When I form a mess and throw it at someone, you react with fire. Form this little mess and throw it at someone. And you start reacting to this mess with fire. There's even a kind of excitement that arises inside. Or he will pull me down with his negativity right now. Or I will burn it away with my fire. If your fire and enthusiasm are enough, he threw the icicle. Let it fly. Keep burning. He adjusts settings. You're generating resentment like, how dare he, because he threw that icicle at you. Let it fly. You keep burning. Through that, he adjusts those settings for himself. You're burning. You're not fighting the icicle. Let it fly and fly. You just keep burning, 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 burning. And through that icicle, he starts to adjust those settings for himself. To bring it to yourself. Yes. And at some point, I don't know, something clicks in another person and suddenly that icicle disappears. But not because you dissolved her, not because you did such a great job, not because God protected you, but because he touched it like this, and you were like that. It's like, damn, that's actually good too. Well, what can I say? That's it.
So it doesn't burn out, it just feeds back to him. Yes, that's it. But is it good or bad? Sometimes evil comes back around.
But sometimes it transforms into good, into love. And like this, look, if you burned it out, then look. Why do they call it a karmic knot? Because if we look with vision, then an alien consciousness, meaning the field of another person, touches your field. If there's a rigid construct, a rigid position, like this mental one, mental tension, that's it. Energy, it enters you like a crystal, something rigid. If you, touching this crystal, also start to crystallize, like with a warm hand on a cold piece of metal. So you start to break up, merge, and this rigid construct, oops, that's it, it's all tied up.
Didn't feel.
Yes, and now you're connected like a needle with a thread, but through a rigid construct. Therefore, everything hard will pass through it, but everything light will not be able to pass through it. So, if you're feeling bad, he'll feel bad too. If he's feeling bad, you'll start to feel bad too. You're all tied together through this connect. If use magic to cut this off, you've separated magic and witchcraft, and if you cut this off, then it seems like you've separated. That evil comes back to him, but that little piece of him still hangs on to you. So, on one hand, it seems like you've cut yourselves off. And the rank hurts because the crystal is still on your side. Then evil returns to him. That is, this negativity will enter his field. And his field will begin to resemble itself around him. And most likely his mood will be spoiled. But if you don't use magical rituals or such harsh transformation methods, and instead you start to ignite your own side, ignite, 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 then he also starts to melt and becomes more flexible. Flexible, flexible, flexible. And at the moment when his energy will return to him, yes, you'll be more fiery, but nothing too negative will come back to him. So, something will just come back to him, and maybe he'll say, whatever, how much time has passed? And you won't have any of that at all. It's just some kind of bad dream you had. You're like, oh my God, it was just a dream, and that's it. and it doesn't react to you at all. We tie these knots an infinite amount if we are constantly here. We're sitting in the trench and fighting with everyone. But if we stop fighting with everyone, defending these endless positions that don't really matter, because obviously at 20 years old you perceive the world in one way and have one set of values. But at 50 you're like, no. Oh my God, what an idiot I was. It's the same as a real revolutionary, always young there. Revolutionary? Yes, it's always the young one there. Well, what? A conservative is a true conservative. That's always the adult, the elderly. Well, that's just how it is. So you change your positions, but if your positions leave behind these crystallizations, fused with other people, at some point there's just nothing left to crystallize, and you just fade away, you become dull, plain and simple. But if you choose not to fight every time, but to hold your ground, the state is fluid, fiery, and then suddenly, after some time, yes, not immediately, not instantly, but after a while, it turns out that you won't have anyone to fight with, and everything that holds you back is your own stupidity. Lose it, you're there something?
You can ignite it not here, but just imagine that I am fire, and like plasma, everything burns away or flies past in the plasma, right?
That this pillow is getting closer now. Well, through him. And here I am, just like that. I didn't imagine anything, I just moved it clearly. It's all physics, it's metaphysics. I took it as metaphysics because the organs of sense perceive it with effort. Developing their senses, extrasensory, is the same actions.
So first I imagined that the pillow had arrived. And you see that the pillow has arrived.
No, but you really start to use your second body of attention, just like your physical one. Exactly like that.
For now, well, this second attention is still such a thing for me.
So that's why it's called the second, because it's not clear.
You need to grow there. Don't understand.
You need to form there. You've watched how a child learns to use their legs. Well, yeah, so how much time does he spend on that?
Trolls.
Efforts. Time. How quickly does he start to get the hang of it?
By the way, they say it's healthier to crawl, but people put them in walkers and that affects their brains.
Where has it brought you now? Fight a bit.
Yeah, no, hello.
I'm giving you an example. Well, look. You're even forming yourself in a physical body. It's obvious that no one is doing gymnastics. The first 3 years of life, you're like rubber there, totally unclear what you are. The same goes for energy. While you're growing into that, yeah, it's totally unclear, I agree with that. But when you've already become a teenager there, you're already asking yourself the question, how to show them, because it's obvious to you, and them, where to find evidence that this is happening. That's why I say look for evidence that it's real in the reactions of the people around you, in the reactions of animals. I was giving an example. Get behind a drunk person who's walking and swaying. Just try to use the power of your energy. Take his field there, move his field to the right.
I'm even afraid to touch right now.
What's the problem?
Well, and realism was added to this now. He will go in.
He will come out, and devils will be released from him. What kind of practitioner are you if you are? Can't you hold composition? Well, can you imagine? I'm saying right now, damn, I'm scared. My heart is showing. What if you spit on it? They spit on me. They spit constantly, just non-stop. And in my head, all my loved ones are running. Close people? Well, let them spit. I really don't care. I'm not stopping them from doing it. Yeah, go ahead and spit on me. I don't care. Intention, goal, and I'm moving towards them. I'm not heed anyone.
No offense. In resentment, a spasm starts immediately and the heart closes up.
Resentment's death enough.
When you spit on a mission with an open heart, I got spat on, of course, some resentment, anger, and hatred arise. And the heart closes up immediately, right?
That's right, because such a reaction implies suicide. Resentments, they on an energetic level. You start to crumple the energy of another person. You kill him on an energetic level. On a mental level, you can start to kill him. So you want him to die? You take away his right to live.
So you need to be happy and even more open your heart.
What does it mean to be happy? If you have reasons to be happy,
Be happy. Well, what we've learned is that instead of running away, we need to create a surprise.
Who is stopping you from not noticing it?
Not notice, ignore?
Well, as an option.
Well, that's what I did.
Ignored it. You just keep doing your own thing.
It's easier.
Of course, well, just look at what I do. From time to time, some revelations appear on the internet, some... Am I wasting my time on this? Yeah, I really don't care. Expose me all you want. I'm moving in my own direction.
There are a lot of haters.
Have you read the comments on my video? Well, obviously, a certain percentage of people are hating on me, criticizing me, all that. Oh my God, for God's sake. The reality of all this will sort out. And when a person generates this, they shape it around themselves. Why should I get involved in that? What he has around him, that's what he shapes. No, I'm going to keep moving forward again, within the framework of realizing my intention. But why is this happening? Because I haven't reached my intention yet.
Hate. Yes, hate is happening. Yes, why? Someone is there.
Envy. It doesn't matter. Not about that. It's because there's still something imperfect in me that needs polishing. Intensity. So reality shows by the reactions of other people where I'm still falling short, and I know very well where I'm still falling short. And I can only laugh and say, damn, wow, what a reality. Someone cares about me and looks out for me. Well, that's exactly it. They hit me in the most painful spots. Yes, I know that they hurt. I know that it's in me. I know that I can be called out for this. But every time someone calls me out for it, they chip away at me even more. Even more. Meow. It removes. This right here. It toughens. You could say that, yes. It toughens. At some point, I have that too. There were different hang-ups. And one of my hang-ups was when I tell my close people, so in short, folks, don't get me emotional. Who will get me emotional? Well, there will be a lot of bonuses. All right, let's go. That's it. But it doesn't work that way, unfortunately, because when all of this really happens, it's like sparring between two friends.
Maybe it started helping me because of the practitioners. I don't get attached to emotions at all anymore. So it became completely different. And people are looking. They're trying. But somehow.
Of course, yes. But it all works globally and on a basic level. When you absolutely know why you're living, and we've already had a chance to talk about some serious financial achievements. I say, well, look at how truly wealthy people react to critical situations. It feels like it's not even a problem for them, not even close, even though it might seem like a huge problem for you. And so time goes by of establishing oneself as quite social. We're talking about social of a public figure, like breaking out of your shell. I'm starting to notice things about myself. What stopped me 5 years ago goes through. It would have stopped me. Right now, it feels like it just passes right through. I can't say that it has completely disappeared. But we had differences. If before I would focus on one problem, process of organizing different situations, and if before I would focus on one problem, yes, I would have solved it, but I would have been stuck on it, let's say a few days. Then today, I can solve the same problem in just a few seconds. And it won't change my momentum or my speed in any way. How will I solve it? Yes, there are always 100 million ways to solve one problem. But it's really about the effectiveness of the solution, not that the problems no longer exist. Yeah, no, there are all sorts of problems, technical aspects, organizational issues. It all happens. That's how it's done. And what I like is that I'm now surrounded by people who know how to solve these problems. I'm currently surrounded by people, for the most part, who also know how to solve these problems. So we are organizing an event and we got stuck on an issue. We couldn't agree. Problematic situation. Well, we couldn't agree on opinions. I say, so this is my position. They say, so this is our position. I say, look, we can do this, that, and the other. And then it seems like, well, not really. Someone will budge a little. Yeah, and everyone will say, yeah, that's a good option. So everyone did it. Let's move on. 5 years ago, I would have dug my heels in and said, it's either this way or no way. That's it. So I got up. I myself extended the path to my intentions realization. So on one hand, I'm still not bending. But on the other hand, these maneuvers Yeah, these maneuvers allow for it. Dance. So I've started to dance more gracefully with reality. And dance, the gracefulness of this dance depends on how much you love your world. If your intention sets your heart on fire, you can't be pulled out of that dance. But if you're doubting what's right or wrong, then without even realizing it, you'll get distracted. Do you want to unlock your inner strength and learn to manage energy? The course, Power of Consciousness 1. Practical Energy will provide you with tools to improve health, develop intuition, and gain a deeper understanding of the world. Join and start changing your life right now. Link in the description.